The senseless killing of Christopher Lane, the Australian college baseball player police say was gunned down by 3 teenagers in Duncan, Oklahoma.
There's a young man he's just fell over in the ditch and he's got blood on him.
Is he breathing? Is he conscious? Is he talking to you? What's he doing?
He's not conscious. Is he still breathing? Barely.
These teens now charged in the killing, 15, 16, 17 years of age. The 2 youngest charged as adults with first-degree murder. And then this is a video posted on the social media site Vine. Shows the youngest man here laughing, and you see the rifle showing it off. Prosecutors call them thugs who went hunting for someone to kill out of boredom. But on the other side of the world, in Australia, the U.S. gun debate that people have watched from afar just got very personal.
That you are 15 times more likely to be shot dead in the USA per million people than here in Australia. And people should factor that in. They should think twice in the circumstances, but it's jogged along by the senseless killing, the shooting in the back of an outstanding young Australian on a scholarship in the USA, which has caused, quite properly, deep-seated anger right across Australia.
What do you think of this? I want to bring in Ben Ferguson, CNN political commentator, and Marc Lamont, professor at Columbia University and host of HuffPost Live. So, gentlemen, good to see you. You know, that was the interview this morning with the former Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, and he actually came out yesterday and asked for Australian tourists to consider boycotting travel to the U.S., essentially to send a message to Congress. Ben Ferguson, do you think our gun culture impacts tourism?
I don't think that it does overall. I think you've got a politician here that is saying that he can use the death of one of his citizens to his advantage for political gain with upcoming elections. And that, I think, is the saddest part of all of this. I mean, there are a lot of people that come to America with scholarships and come on full rides. I had the opportunity to play tennis in college with 3 different students from Australia, one from Melbourne, one from Wagga Wagga, and one from Sydney. And I can't imagine if this would have happened to them. But the bigger issue here is, why are they using this for political gain instead of remembering this young man for what he was, which was obviously a phenomenal student, athlete on top of that, and instead it's being used for politics, and I think that's really sad that they're doing that in Australia.
Mark, I see you shaking your head. Do you think they're playing politics here? Or?
Well, first of all, the biggest tragedy here isn't the use of political discourse. The biggest tragedy is that this young man has died.
Yeah.
And actually, when...
Sure, absolutely, I agree with that.
When tragedies befall American citizens, whether it's someone being captured in a hostage crisis or someone is killed on foreign borders, we often link it to that country's particular set of politics as well. So that's not an uncommon thing for us to do. And no, these kids weren't simply killed because of bad gun policy. Or this child wasn't killed because of bad gun policy. There are 3 young men who clearly have mental illness, who clearly have some issues with violence, who clearly need to be punished and disciplined, who need to be punished appropriately. That's a key issue here. But access to guns does matter. The fact that these 3 young men who clearly had issues had such easy access to a weapon is a problem. It's not the only problem, because you could argue that even with really tight gun laws, they still would have committed a crime. That might be true. But easy access is a problem here.
What about the fact, when I think of Australia and you think about guns, you know, you think about the sweeping gun reforms there, assault weapons bans, background checks, this all came out, you know, I feel like a discussion because of Newtown, because we remember, some people remember that mass shooting in the state of Tasmania. That was 1996. And so since then, there has not been a single mass shooting ever since that horrible day. And so do you think that United States, and legally speaking, nothing's really changed since Newtown, but should we be looking at, you know, how those successes in countries like Australia as far as how we make policy here? To either of you.
Yes. I think you have to look at it a little bit, certainly. But I also think you have to look at the context of Australia. Australia's gun laws have been much more liberal than America's have ever been. And Australia has had, it was a lot easier for them to get, I think, many of their guns off the streets in Australia, mainly because of how little time they were even being manufactured and sold in Australia. And that's something you have to take in this dynamic. The other thing is, we do have laws here that don't allow for minors to have these types of weapons or purchase them on their own. So laws were broken here. I think the bigger issue, if anything, we should look at is why are 3 minors driving around without their parents' knowledge that, 1, they have a gun, and 2, they're driving around a car to go shoot somebody. You've got a massive issue here with parenting in America, especially with kids like this, and that's the tragedy that we're not looking at. Fixing this through gun crimes or fixing it through gun policies are not going to fix the parenting issues of why is your 15-year-old son out at night shooting someone in the back because they're bored.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, well, Ben said 2 things that I strongly disagree with. First, the argument that we can't do anything about guns because we have so many that we can't get our arms around it, that the problem is just too unwieldy, is to me a problematic argument. You're essentially saying that we can't do anything because it would be really hard, or we can't get all the guns, so we shouldn't get any of them. Implementing
It's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is America is a different country than Australia is.
I agree.
And we have a different set of rules in this country.
But Ben, let me finish. Let me finish though. Ben, my point is that yes, America is a different country. America actually has a wider and more vigorous gun culture. America has greater levels of access to guns for its citizens. Therefore, we need even more intense laws. And as far as the parenting piece of this, yes, of course, you should be a responsible parent, but all parents make mistakes. All parents are imperfect. But if you have an imperfect parent, a troubled child, and then you have easy access to guns, that's a recipe for disaster. I'd like to have troubled parents, troubled kids, and no guns if I could choose it. And we have that option through sensible reform with guns. Don't get rid of the Second Amendment. Don't abolish all gun rights.
Here's what I would say. Here's my question about that, though. What law would you have passed to take the gun away from these 3 young men whose parents obviously didn't know what they were doing with their lives, where they were, or why they're so bored they're driving around trying to find a random person to kill because they were bored? That's a problematic question. The issue isn't what law. No, it's not. It's what you just proposed. I'm asking you what law you think we should do, since you said my idea was not a good one. I'm asking you for a resolution of the problem, and I don't think you have one.
Well, I would have one if you let me finish. My answer is,
go ahead, Mark.
We impose laws that prevent people from making straw purchases. We impose laws that prevent large numbers of guns into urban centers, so that when they fall off the back of someone's pickup truck, and I don't mean that in a racial sense, I'm saying pickup truck in a sense that they don't really fall off. When that happens, young teenagers don't have such easy access to them. No,
but
that's the issue.
We already have those laws. You just quoted laws that we currently have.
Ben, you can't.
You just quoted laws that are already on the books. So I'm asking you, what new law would you pass?
I said intensifying them and enforcing them. So you can't legislate against individual responsibility, or you can't force individual responsibility, but you can make it harder for irresponsible people to have weapons of mass destruction.
Okay, hang on. Let me jump in, because if you talk about, Mark, if you talk about intensifying laws, I guess this is my final question, and to both of you, when do you ever think, let's say 10 years, 50 years, that the majority of the country will be on the side of Marc Lamont Hill? Ben?
They already are, Brooke. They love me. They agree with me. The problem is the NRA is so powerful, the gun lobby is so powerful that a disgruntled minority rules the majority.
Ben, go.
I don't think the country's going to go there, because the weapon that was used to kill this unfortunate student was not a weapon of war. It wasn't even in the category of guns that many liberals proposed to get rid of. This is not as much about the weapon. It is about a culture where you have kids raising kids, and you have 15-year-old kids driving around so bored that they shoot people because they want to watch it, and their parents don't know where they are. This is a parenting issue we have in this country more than anything else.
Teen moms lead to first-degree murder. That's your argument? Kids raising kids leads to
I'm saying these young teen boys were charged with first-degree murder.
Ben Ferguson, we got to cut it there. We got to cut it there. Ben Ferguson, Marc Lamont Hill. I appreciate a good, healthy discussion on both sides and all the way around. Tragic, this young man killed. Horrible, horrible, horrible. To both of you, thank you very much.